When an avoidant finally meets their person, the one who could actually heal their wounds and love them back to wholeness, they experience the most torturous psychological conflict of their lives. Every cell in their body recognizes you as home while their brain screams danger signals. They're simultaneously drawn to you like a magnet and repelled by you like you're radioactive. This internal war tears them apart because they've never wanted anything more than they want you, and they've never been more terrified of anything in their entire existence. The soul recognition terror. Their soul immediately recognizes you as the missing piece they've been searching for their entire life, but their wounded psychology interprets that recognition as the ultimate threat to their survival. The deeper the recognition goes, the more violent their fear response becomes. It's not that they don't know you're special, it's that they know you're too special, too perfect, too everything they need. This recognition feels supernatural and undeniable, which terrifies someone who's built their entire identity around emotional control and rational decision-making. You represent something bigger than logic, something that could completely transform their existence, and that level of life-altering potential feels like standing on the edge of a cliff. The conflict between their soul's certainty and their mind's terror creates a psychological storm so intense they can barely function. They want to run toward you and away from you with equal desperation, leaving them paralyzed in a state of constant internal warfare. The healing versus safety paradox. You represent their greatest opportunity for healing and their greatest threat to the safety systems they've spent decades constructing. Their wounded parts desperately crave the healing you could provide, while their protective parts are screaming that letting you close enough to heal them would make them vulnerable to the worst pain they've ever experienced. They can see exactly how you could fix what's broken inside them, but they're terrified that opening up to that healing would require dismantling all their defenses and leaving themselves completely exposed. The cure feels more dangerous than the disease because healing requires vulnerability they've never allowed themselves. This creates the cruel irony where they're running from the person who could actually save them because accepting salvation feels riskier than staying broken. They'd rather keep their wounds than risk having them healed by someone who could also destroy them. The home versus prison conflict. Being with you feels like coming home to themselves for the first time in their lives, but it also feels like walking into a prison where they'll lose all their freedom and independence. You represent everything they've always wanted and everything they've always feared, wrapped up in one impossible person. Your presence makes them feel more like themselves than they ever have, but it also threatens to completely change who they are. They're terrified of loving you so much they disappear into the relationship, losing the carefully constructed identity they've built around being self-sufficient and emotionally untouchable. The home feeling is so powerful it's addictive, but the fear of losing themselves in that feeling makes them want to run before they get trapped in a connection so deep they can't escape it. They're afraid of loving you so much they stop being themselves. The perfect timing versus terrible timing reality. You showed up at exactly the right time to save them and exactly the wrong time for them to be saved. Their soul has been calling for you, but their psychology isn't ready to handle what you represent. You're the right person at what feels like the wrong time, even though they know there will never be a right time for someone like them to receive love this pure. They're caught between knowing they need you desperately and believing they need more time to become worthy of you. The conflict between divine timing and personal readiness creates paralysis where they can't move toward you or away from you without feeling like they're making a mistake. Part of them believes if they let you go and work on themselves, they could come back worthy of your love. But another part knows that someone like you doesn't come around twice, and letting you go means losing their only chance at the kind of love they've always dreamed about. The worthiness versus unworthiness war. You make them feel worthy of love for the first time in their lives while simultaneously highlighting every reason they believe they're unworthy of someone like you. Your love reveals their potential while their shame focuses on their current reality, creating a constant battle between who they could become and who they are now. They can see glimpses of their best self reflected in your eyes, but they can't reconcile that vision with their internal sense of being fundamentally flawed and damaged. You believe in them more than they've ever believed in themselves, which feels like pressure they can't live up to. The worthiness you see in them feels foreign and impossible to maintain, while their familiar sense of unworthiness feels safe and predictable. They're torn between stepping into the person you see them as and staying in the broken identity they know how to manage, the forever versus never internal battle. They want to spend forever with you while simultaneously believing they're incapable of forever with anyone. You represent their dream of permanent love and their nightmare of permanent commitment, making you both their salvation and their greatest fear. The thought of forever with you feels like heaven and hell at the same time. Heaven because you're everything they've ever wanted, and hell because forever means they can never escape back to their comfortable emotional isolation when the vulnerability becomes overwhelming. They're caught between their heart's desire for lifetime commitment to you and their psychology's conviction that they'll inevitably sabotage anything permanent. They want to promise you forever, but they're terrified they don't have the emotional capacity to deliver on that promise. The all-in versus self-preservation conflict. Loving you properly would require them to go all in emotionally, but their entire survival system is built around never putting all their eggs in one basket. You're asking them to bet everything they are on love working out, when their entire life experience has taught them that love doesn't work out for people like them. They know you deserve someone who can love you completely without reservation, but they've never learned how to love without keeping escape routes and emotional emergency exits. Going all in with you feels like emotional suicide to their protective systems, the truth of their impossible position. The conflict they feel about you isn't confusion about whether they want you. They want you more than they've ever wanted anything. The conflict is about whether they can survive wanting you this much, whether they can handle being this vulnerable, and whether they can become the person worthy of the love you're offering. You're not their maybe person, you're their everything person. And that's exactly why they can't handle you.